Transfer window is now closed, and what a late flurry that was for North End. Lots to digest on this week's episode of Where Gentry Walk. Ins and outs, Mads is gone, Lang is in for a club record fee. What do we think to all that? Well, we've got Harvey, Etienne, James and Joey, full house with us this week, not just to talk about that, but also that 1-1 draw against Ipswich was pretty impressive. Were North End unlucky? And what do we think to that penalty decision? We're going to get into all of that shortly. First of all, if you've only just found the channel, thank you very much. If you could just press that subscribe button, we'd be very, very grateful. This is the shortest Preston North End podcast on the internet. There's loads of other great ones which go on for an hour. If you haven't got the time for that, 20 minutes is we can digest. We can fill everything in. Let's jump straight into it then, Harvey. Mads is gone. Your reaction, please.
It stings a bit. Obviously, I think everybody on this podcast knows how much I like Mads. I was really a big fan. I think that he's definitely a player that we probably might not see again in terms of what he does for quite a while. I think that he's very special in the way that he plays. I've said it a million times. I think he sees the game in a different light. I think he's definitely one of the best players I've seen technically. And obviously, I think that it is a shame because obviously I wanted him to stay, but I do think that in the current system he just doesn't fit. So for him to be able to go to Bromby, which is his it's like his boyhood club, I'm really happy for him, and I really hope he flourishes there because I think he deserves it.
I mean, his first season here, Etienne, he was amazing, wasn't he? And what happened after that?
I think his form just kind of tailed away, and everyone started, especially me, I started to get frustrated with the fact that yes, he did have that technical ability, but at the same time, you never really saw his passion and his desire to win games on the pitch. He kind of float around and try and stay calm. And I appreciate in some game states that's good, but in championship football, players who do that will struggle to get goals, to get assists, and in turn, he's then found himself falling out of the squad, especially this season. Even though he scored against Southampton and Sheffield Wednesday, he still found opportunities very limited, and I think it right now is just the best time to moving on. When we got Bromby, who were willing to offer him a fee, and he will go and do well out there, and for us to then get a replacement on the same day, I think it's just a deal we had to do. And whilst I'm going to miss him quite a bit, I think it was just getting to the end of his time here.
He's unplayable on his day, James, wasn't he? Did Ryan Lowe ruin him, or?
Well, he was unplayable on his day, but his day was once every 6 months, in my opinion. I thought he was good. But I don't know, he always seemed a bit lethargic. Maybe that's just his personality, but there was a lot more he could do. He was a great player, don't get me wrong. The technical ability was top level, but you've got to have a little bit of fight in you, which I don't really think he did compared to the other midfielders we've got.
Should we talk about some new faces then for a second here? Let's talk about Moran, Joey, who's been announced in the last hour. There's an undisclosed fee. Andrew Moran from Brighton. Anybody know ballpark figures as what that might be? What you've heard any rumours?
A million.
Sorry, 1 million plus fees.
Okay, right. you all said 1 million at the same time. There, just blurred into it. Right. Okay. Happy with this one, Joey?
Yeah, I mean, actually, probably more happy that it is a permanent transfer than it would have been if it was a loan, because a loan I think it was going to take him a bit of time to gel in the team, especially given that he's not played football for a few months now because he went over to America to play football there. So it's almost like I don't know what sort of he's been doing at Brighton to sort of get up to pace, but I can't imagine it's been too intense given he's just done a season over in America. I think I prefer it to a loan because I think we can develop him. We've seen with Afia what we did with he took him a bit of time to get into the team, and he's been a good acquisition from Brighton. I think this is going to be something similar where we can develop him and in the future make a bit of a profit on him. He's definitely someone who knows the division. He's been at Stoke and Blackburn and had fairly okay returns. I mean, I think he's flat deceiving in some ways, but I think we've seen it before with like players like Lewis Dobbin, Devine. They've had spellers before the division, and I think if you get them at the right time, the third or fourth loan spell, it's not a loan spell, but the third or fourth time with a good amount of games in him. We've seen Jebo do the same under Hecky. He usually gets the best out of these sort of players that have got a good reputation at a young age, but sort of lost away a bit, and I think that's pretty accurate of description of Moran. So yeah, I think there's definitely potential there, and for $1 million, I think you can't really grumble at that.
Yeah, do you agree, Etienne?
Yeah, I very much agree. When I saw the rumour this morning that he was going to be a loan, I went, typical Preston North End, getting a good player on a loan, probably won't be here at the end of the season. But then these rumours started to rumble about him getting permanent, and it's happened. And I'm quite happy. I think he's a good player. I'm friends with a lot of Stoke and Blackburn fans who said, yeah, he was a bit lightweight, but he also had flashes of quality. And I think as a championship club, when you're able to bring in a player like that, make them your own, put them on a long contract, and just give them the confidence that you're not going anywhere. You're not a lone player at a Premier League club. You're now a championship player for real. It might give him that confidence and that time, especially under Hecky, for him to develop into the player he can be. And for that alone, I'm pretty excited about this.
Okay. And that brings us to Callum Lang then, Harvey. Now, the last thing he needs for his hamstrings is to play on a pitch, which is an absolute cow field. There's no way his hammies last more than, I don't know, a game and a half at Deepdale, to be frank with you. But I mean, joking aside, yeah, what have you made of this news that's broken in the last hour?
Well, yeah, funnily enough, I said the same thing as you. I thought as soon as we signed him, I thought it's nailed on his hamstring goals on game one, isn't it? But oh yeah, listen, I think everyone knows that Callum Lang is a player who has the ability to play well. I think everyone's main issue was just about keeping him fit. Obviously, even Portsmouth fans know he's got loads of glimpses of quality. He makes all the right runs, getting into the right spaces. He can score goals, but it's obviously taking a bit of faff in between the two clubs all day. But I'm just hoping that, fingers crossed, if we can keep him fit throughout the season, that he should be like a really influential player for us, and hopefully he can be the extra player that we need to push us into that top six for the end of the season.
Yep. 90th minute winner on Saturday, James, wouldn't go amiss, would it, against his old club? I mean, club record fee. I mean, some have raised their eyebrows at that. I mean, we don't know exactly how much, James, but do you balk at a player that's played 11 games in 11 months?
To go to the club record fee thing, I think if we paid over a tenner, we're nearing on our club record fee. So I wouldn't get too hung up about that. I think in this day and age, regardless of the injuries, if you look at his goals to games record, you are going to pay fairly decent money to acquire a player of his standard. So, yeah, there's concerns about his fitness, but, only time will tell. And like I said, if he bags a brace on Saturday, I think no one will be complaining.
Okay. We said a couple of weeks ago, fellas, on here that, the upstairs hierarchy have got to have a good window to sort out some issues and back the manager. Question to you all, anyone can chip in here. Now the dust has settled. Do you think it is a good window?
I feel like I'm more on the positive side of things, but I might be looking at it through the fact that we have just signed 2 new players today. I definitely wouldn't defend the hierarchy, and I'm definitely not advocating for them to stay, because I do think it's time for change in that regard. But we did pull our fingers out. I think they did sense that our chances would go really stale if they didn't provide at least some injection of funds. And if you told me 2 weeks ago that we would sign 2 players for 7 figures fees and a club record signing, I go, there's no chance, because we thought we weren't going to get anybody for a fee. And whilst I'm not saying then it should be an 8 or 9 out of 10 window. Yes, we've lost Armstrong, but we replaced him with a young prospect who we've put on a contract. We replaced him with Callum Lang, who can score goals at this level. Sure, we maybe needed a left centre-back and a bit more depth, but for me, it's a solid 6 out of 10. There's room for improvement, but we did sign some players at the end of the day.
Harvey, you shaking your head there when I ask the question. You saying no?
I'm more on the negative side, just because I think that the club clearly don't always have a plan B. I think there was a key quote I remember from Heckingbottom's interviews, and he says, if we don't finish the window in a better position than what we left it in, then it's criminal. And I don't think we've done that. I think that we've not really got like-for-like replacements in terms of players. Obviously, Lukovic is still obviously in the equation. I don't know anything about him. I don't really know anyone that does know anything about him. Obviously, he's still a young prospect, and obviously that's still to be seen. Moran, obviously, he's had a bit of experience in the Championship, but again, not really many players know anything about him. But that is long term, which is the only positive I can give for the club. I think, obviously, Lang and Moran, as much as they are long term, well, Lang, so to speak, a few years, it is a bit forward thinking. But I just think that the club haven't really made like for like replacements, and I think, especially with how late we've left it and the amount of time we also waited for Armstrong to come back, especially at the end of the month, I think that it's quite clear that the club wasn't fully planned to deal with anything else other than have maybe 1 or 2 additions plus Armstrong. So that's why it's a bit negative for me.
Okay. James, I can see you nodding along there.
Well, I agree with Harvey. I think we've left it to the last day of January, so forget about all the January games. Then was our motto. We've been absolutely battered in January by lack of players, poor results, poor performances. And it's almost on the verge of like panic buying on the final day because you've had no plan. You had all your hopes on Armstrong, who I don't really think any of us really felt he was going to come back. So if the club think that, then we're in serious trouble. So no, I'm not impressed by the transfer window. I think we actually end it weaker than we started it. So look, I know there's been a couple of good deals, but you know, it's uninspiring, turgid, and they need to go.
Joey.
I'm not sure we end it weaker. I mean, I think, you know, the players we've got rid of were pretty fringe. Obviously, you can't really include Armstrong because he wasn't our player, and let's face it, like we've all said, we didn't expect him to come back. I think, you know, when you've got to look at like players like Keane, he wasn't even getting on the pitch. Mads, until last game, even when we were doing poorly, he wasn't getting on the pitch. Same with Ford Dawson. So I think all those players, like, they weren't really adding anything to the squad, or, you know, anything really contributing to the push. The players that have come in are a bit of an unknown quantity, and I think the frustrating thing for me is that the 3 players that may not hit the ground running, either because of injury or because they've not had a proper sort of pre-season in the case of Moran, or they're from an international team in case of Lukovic. I think they're not 3 players you can think, oh, they'll hit the ground running like maybe Davis, Keeler Dunn, who we were also linked with, could have done and probably will do for Wrexham. So that's probably where my frustration lies, because we need players for now and not for, you know, to settle in a month's time. And I do agree with James that it's really frustrating that we've had a whole month of just dilly-dallying, and it's cost us three results, you know, the 3 losses. So I think, yes, that's disappointing. But to say I think we're weak, I'm not sure we're weak. I think we're potentially stronger, and we're also set up for the future a lot better as well with players like Moran. So I'm happy in that sense, but it could have been better, like Etienne says. I don't think it's a terrible, disastrous window, but at the same time, signing a left centre back and being more prepared on the Armstrong front, I think that would have been better. And, you know, as I think most fans know, you know, we really have a chance this season, and I think, you know, not signing those players early on the window probably will cost us, I think.
Okay. And just as an Evertonian, I mean, I genuinely do think had Jack Grealish not been injured and Dwight McNeil not stung the whole of January out, I think, you might have got him back. But unfortunately, Dwight McNeil is absolutely a liability. So we need Armstrong in that midfield. Right then, let's talk about a little bit about the Ipswich game then, shall we, at the weekend. This from Ed. I can't complain at the result. I was glad the referee realised the error of his ways and didn't give them a second penalty. Cornell did well for me today and should keep his spot. Gibbo, the man of the match. For me, lots to unpick here. Let's go straight into it, shall we? Etienne, that's not the bottom one. I want that one. Etienne, just on the referee and the decisions in that game, penalty. I mean, Ipswich fans said if the first one wasn't, then the second one he didn't give was. Did it even itself out?
I'm not going to lie, I haven't seen the second penalty, so I'm only the second penalty shout, but I'm only qualified to talk about the first one. For me, I think Paul wins the ball, but also why are you diving in when Clark is kind of running away from goal? I think, you know, we can complain about the penalty decision itself, and also the double touch. It's so light that I can understand why the referees haven't seen it, but again, that's their job. So I'm a little bit incensed about that. But yeah, just there was no need to be diving in. I would say we're pretty unlucky in that regard. But yeah, I think 1-1. I take 1-1 every day when you talk about Ipswich way, and I'm quite disappointed that we didn't actually win that game considering the circumstances.
Yeah, the better team, especially in the first half. I think. I mean, Paul Valentin posted this on his Instagram anyway, and saying, "Well, make of that what you make." I mean, he got the ball, didn't he, Harvey?
It's really hard to tell. I think if he does, it's an extremely little amount. Where, like Etienne said, he's probably had to give it. Obviously, like you've just mentioned, then I think the second penalty appeals are a lot more stronger than the first ones. But I think that the referee has had the decision where he's given the first one, so the second one just can't be given. But I think it was widely accepted by Ipswich fans and Preston fans that the referee just had a very poor game for both sides in general. A lot of decisions went the wrong way both. So I would have taken a 1-1 before the game, and I think that even though there was a few dodgy decisions, that a 1-1's probably the right result in the end.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the goalkeeper then. Let's talk about Cornell James, shall we? A bit. Oh, that's not the right one I want. I want that one. He's not a bad keeper at all, says P&E Lens. He's not at Everson's levels, of course, but he's still a very good backup. In fact, I'd say he's better than Walton. Yeah. Do you agree?
No, not particularly. I think Walton is better than Cornell. I think it's 15 games with Cornell in there and we've not won one. So, granted, it's not his fault, but no, it's like the best of a bad bunch, but I'd still go Walton over Cornell.
Okay, Joey?
I mean, yeah, like it's what's worse, isn't it, in that case? But I'd say I'll give Cornell his due. I think he's got a bit more confidence from the defenders because he had that relationship at the back end of last season. You could tell, he wasn't as rooted to his line as Walton had been. And, actually, I think he had a decent game, to be honest with you. His kicking was good. He managed to come out to claim it a few times, punch away a few corners. He just did the basics right, but that's all we needed. I think Walton just really looked very not confident against Middlesbrough, and it showed. And I think it was the right decision to drop him because I just don't think it was good for his confidence. I think probably James is right. Probably Walton's a better keeper on paper, but at the moment we just needed someone who could just reinstore some confidence into that back line. And to be fair to Cornell, he did that.
Okay, so he keep his place for Pompey then for you?
Yeah, but hopefully Everson's back if he just plays because he's still got a mistake in him, Cornell. That's the problem.
What's it with North End and keepers? Crikey. Right, let's talk about Jefferson, shall we then, Harvey? A little bit. Ran himself to the ground. Lord Alty says, I'm not a fan of his really, but if he keeps putting in shifts like this, I'll easily change my position. That was his best game for us, in my opinion. I mean, I have seen others, Harvey, that say, he's got the running, he's got the effort, he's got the work rate, but he just can't. He hasn't got the finishing touch that position warrants. Where are you on him?
He's a bit of a mixed bag for me. Don't get me wrong. I genuinely think that he was very much a standout in the Ipswich game. I think that, like the tweet says, he absolutely ran his socks off. I think I tweeted during the game that I actually felt really sorry for him because there was a few times that North End had like a counter-attack and it was just Jefferson up front on his own with no support around him. And it was just a bit frustrating because you think, maybe if you can get like one or two plays in the box, maybe like Vine or say if Dobbin had started, then you'd like to think that maybe they lead to something more. But he is one of them players where he definitely confuses you. You can have a game like that at Ipswich and then there's other games where I've seen him, like the ball bounce 50 yards off his feet or, he doesn't really look like he knows what to do when the ball's at his feet. Off the ball, I think he's an exceptional player. I think he presses really well. I think he's quite good like in the aerial sense. But yeah, I just think that he's going to be one of them players where he needs to start hitting the net a bit more consistently or there might be a few conversations needed to be had about him.
Yeah, okay. Etienne, that performance and the result, I think was probably fair to say was grossly needed, wasn't it? Given the January. This weekend, Wrexham play Millwall, and of course you're home to Pompey. So this is a chance for you to gain your 3 points back that you've lost in that January period. Can you still make the playoffs? And based on what you've seen at Ipswich, beating Pompey is an absolute must.
Yeah, 100%. We can't afford another silly defeat at home. I think I said at the start of January I wanted to see 7 points, and we only saw one. So yeah, Pompey is, it's feel good factor right now, but 100% we have to beat Pompey. And I think, the Ipswich performance, it was kind of what we saw in the first half of the season. Very professional, very, we know what to do when we're defending, and a few missed chances here and there, but Gibson took his chance. And I do think there is no reason why we can't be in this playoff conversation, but we have just got to forget that January even happened and just pick back up where we got. Hope these new lads hit the ground running, and yeah, then you never know. Wrexham and Millwall might draw, we might catch up a little bit, and yeah, I think the rest of the season is on our hands. We just need to forget January happened and do some more performances like Ipswich.
Cheers for Etienne. All right, on to a little bits and pieces then. January player of the month. Can we pick one out, Joey, at all?
In January, bloody hell. This is who could get it in January?
Pass.
How many bad games we had? I mean, I had to forget about we played Sheffield Wednesday, didn't we, first game, and then Bristol. I do forget that was January. So I think based on that, I think it was good at Bristol, it was good at Ipswich, and also at Sheffield Wednesday. I'm going to go Alfie Devine. But I mean, that's just me thinking out loud. But it's hard to, when you think of most of January, we had such a bad run of form, and I couldn't pick one player out of the team who even had a decent game. I'm really going back to the Bristol City game, potentially last game against Ipswich, and yeah, I think Devine Dobbin probably would have been at a shout had he played against Ipswich, because I think them two games at the start of the month were good for him. But yeah, beyond that, it's a real struggle, to be honest with you.
We're up to A to Z to finish off with this week. Then we'll let to N for November. Joey was all alone last week with M, so hopefully a bit of support this week. Difficult letter this, or is it, Etienne?
Yeah, I really struggled on this one. Harvey, I know, has got a really obvious one that I'm kicking myself about, but I won't steal it, just so that he can remain on the podcast. So I just went with the North End. It's a good identity to have. I think it's one of the most unique. I think we're one of two clubs. The other one's Glossop, and we're the only one in the Football League. I love that about us. So North End.
Okay, Harvey.
The obvious one is David Nugent. Obviously, just really good, wasn't he? And obviously that England goal where he stole it in his only cap. So,
James, any more?
Yeah, 0, because we don't ever score.
Real Joey.
No. Naff, just the football we watch.
You could have had a few more. You could have had like Alex Neil, like some of the best football we've ever played.
Yeah.
Another player, he weren't really great, but Lucas Nemetcha.
Oh, yeah. He was. I really, really like Lucas Nemetcha. Really liked him. I'm glad he's at Leeds now, because he has flashes of that brilliance. I remember just being so impressed by him.
Brilliant. Good shouts all round. Before we go, don't forget to drop us a sub and a like if you haven't yet done so already. Now, next week, they're going to run to a bit of a brick wall because we reached the letter O in our alphabet. Now, there may be some Preston players that begin with O, but do they deserve to go into the Hall of Fame at the A to Z of North End? So help them out with this one. We're going to allow them to put overhead kicks in. It could be any player, doesn't need to begin with O. Can you remember a bicycle kick scored by a North End player that was significant that can go into the A to Z? We'll let them have overhead kicks if they can't come back next week with a player beginning with O. Or you could have an offside goal, which counted for and against North End, which might go in there as well. That's as good as we can get. Join us for that debate next week then. We'll see how Lang gets on against Pompey, and we'll review all of that next week. Thank you very much for joining us. Great to have your company this week. Thanks, Harvey. Thanks, James. Thanks, Etienne. Thank you, Joey. We'll see you in 7 days' time. Have a great week, everyone.